All right, so I did the interview last night with Philip Kennedy Johnson. He's absolutely amazing, by the way, and I got a lot of answers about Marvel cosmology, Hulk, Superman, and how they stack up and everything going on with them. Also got confirmation about Mother of Horrors being beyond the one above all. But the audio, I did not realize there was a second recording going on, and his sound echoes. So I encourage you, if you are going to watch it, I encourage you to use headphones or use something where you can hear clearly, because that easily helps you get through the echo. If you can't handle echo, I completely understand, and I apologize sincerely. I'm so pissed at myself for this mistake. Me and him were on a time constraint, and it just happened, and I missed it. Fuck. But he is coming back to the channel. We're going to be talking more DC next time. I'll probably ask him a couple Hulk questions again. I'll have Lumos on to ask him Lantern questions. It's going to be really fun. I really appreciated his time. And again, I'm so sorry if this is a hard interview for you guys to listen to because the audio came out weird. About 80% of his audio was normal. The other was kind of messed up. So what I'm going to do is after I post the raw interview, for those that can't sit through it, I'm going to make a breakdown video taking tiny clips of his responses, some things he mentioned, and why they matter to the Marvel and DC landscape and scale from there. So I'll make a very detailed breakdown video of this interview using only clips so you don't have to deal with the audio echo. But yeah, for those that can make it through it, I love you so much. Thank you for sticking around watching this interview. This is a big moment for the channel. And without further ado, sorry for the echo, but here's my interview with the legendary Philip Kennedy Johnson, writer of Hulk and Superman and much more. All right, what's going on, everyone? Today we have an amazing guest on the channel to talk about, primarily for this interview, Hulk and some Superman because he writes both. But this is Philip Kennedy Johnson, if you want to go ahead and say what's up.
What's up, Zach? How are you?
I am fantastic. Glad to have you on here. And we're kind of limited on time today, so we're going to primarily focus on Hulk for you guys today, and we will talk a little bit about Superman, but that will likely be addressed at a later date. So my first question to you, I think, is when you take over a concept like Hulk, which it was obvious by your first issue, you were not afraid to get deep into what his character means at the core. We've seen him really shift over the years from like something as simple as a gamma-fueled monster, which was pretty much science-based at the time, to divine ties. What's that like for you working with Hulk in that regard, like building on the divine ties he has? And I've always wanted to know, do the other Hulks throughout the multiverse have that same tie he has, or is it just him in 616?
So when you say other Hulks, you're talking about the Bruce Banner Hulk from other places, or
like when there's different Hulks throughout the multiverse. Do they all have the same higher purpose as mainline Hulk, or is it just this Hulk?
I mean, it's all about what the writer and of course the reader takes from it. I would argue no. I think that if there's another. If there's another world out there where Amadeus Cho is the primary Hulk, I don't think he brings the same kind of baggage that Bruce Banner has. Like they all kind of have their own story to tell. I don't know. I think it's all about the Hulk. We established there was an old story called Time. It was one shot that was very influential in what I'm doing now. Alex, it was during the Al Ewing Immortal, Alex Pockmark, I think, primarily wrote this issue, and it talks about an archaic version of Hulk, one that is meant to kind of represent, at least would represent Enkidu from the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's this monstrous, like, gold-headed man from that story that is, in this story, imagined as like an early Hulk. That is kind of bonds with what looks like a gamma meteor. And that story was very different. That character, that was not a story about child abuse and rape and all that kind of thing. So I feel like that is going to be very influential on Myron. That story. We're going to establish that there has been more than one Hulk, even in this world. and it's not like it's not the same person being reincarnated. It's not like we're seeing, infinite different versions of Thanos who is always some version of himself. It's just, those different Hulks are all incarnations of Hulk that are just different people bonded with Gamma. Like if I became a Hulk and you became a Hulk, they would be two very different stories based on our own experiences and the life that each of us lives.
Yeah, so, and that makes sense too, because this Hulk really focuses on his specific ties, especially to things like the one below all and the power of rage, which we'll talk about. And that makes what, because people do have questions, is Gamma the same everywhere? Is Hulk the same everywhere? No, I mean, we've obviously seen alternate timelines, and it made more sense to me that 616 Hulk held a higher purpose. And that leads into someone he had a confrontation with, and it led to a fascinating response, in my opinion, from you on Twitter to a fan. And you responded to someone's question, basically, when's Hulk going to have his Superman moment? And for context to his work, for everyone watching, we are talking about when Superman had the statement where essentially time, space, things of that nature meant nothing to him. And you responded with his fight with Brother Deep. I don't disagree with you. I would just like to hear your thoughts on what you meant by that. Like further elaboration.
Well, okay. So when I posted that was a joke. There was a scene in which somebody had shared a statement that Superman had made. And when's Hulk going to get his big statement? I took it to mean what's the one phrase that Hulk is going to say that's going to represent who he is as a character. And I sent a picture of him right after he had pulled, a wing fragment, like a bone fragment out of Brother Deep's back, and was about to stab him to death with it.
It was so bad.
Yeah, he's jumping, holding this thing, and he says, "Should have stayed in your stupid hole."
Yeah, this is a crazy run, and Brother Deep, as a character, I've been fascinated with him ever since you. At first, he was kind of alluded to, and then we full on get to see who Brother Deep was. And I would love to hear what's the future like for my boy Brother Deep. He came in affront to the one above all, and he got mauled by Hulk, so it's been rough for him.
Yeah. I mean, he is an elder god, basically, right? Like his origins tie in very closely with the Mother of Horrors and with the one above all. Depending on how you take, some people are curious about whether the remembrance of Eldest in the back of that book is the capital T truth of how it went down.
Yes, and I definitely was going to bring it up.
It is.
Let's go! I knew it. I wanted confirmation, but I was like, I'm pretty sure this is not something written out of bias. This is really what happened.
Yeah, that's Eldest's version of it, but she was there. She was around back then. So from Eldest's perspective, that is the true Brother Deep is. You might hear Eldest speak a little one-sided about the one above all. They're not friends, but
obviously,
But Eldest has first-hand knowledge about what the one above all, the one below all, the other was going to do that all those characters are first-hand knowledge of who they are. So we're going to see. That's something that I thought would be kind of cool to see at the end of each arc. There's going to be this whole series is going to be nothing but nonsense. Just constant jumping on for readers to jump in whenever they want to with 1, 2, or 3 issue arcs. Nothing longer than that, because I just want to add as many characters to the Marvel bestiary as I can. And I really love those kinds of stories when I was a kid. Man, we used to have these Marvel team-up books. Those books were not new even when I got them. They were second and third.
Oh, I love Marvel team-ups. I read a lot of what you would call classic Doctor Strange, the Strange Tales, things of that nature. I love those reads. Those were some of the most fun.
Yeah, I have a big stack. Well, not a big stack, but for the time I love them. It was mostly Spider-Man teams. Spider-Man came up with Doctor Strange, or
Yeah.
Human Torch, or Ghost Rider, whoever. And honestly, that's where I got a lot of my Marvel knowledge, was from all these, like seeing Spider-Man team up with all these different, A list, B list, C list characters. That's where most of my depth of knowledge from Marvel came from. And I don't know, I just really loved it. It's kind of addictive, and as a kid, I loved the setup. And also I did not have my collection very sporadic. Like Dad would bring me boxes of books that came all over the place. That got out of somebody's garage for $1, and just whatever happened to be in there was what I had. And it was pretty even odds whether if it was like a two-parter. Pretty even odds whether I had both issues from that story. So whenever I had both, or sometimes if there was a story that was a one and done, that was just as good. Where I had a real ending to the story. That was not always the case. Usually I was jumping in the middle of it. It would be a cliffhanger. So when I got that thing, it was really dope. And I want to do that here too. Is I want to try to keep the arcs really short so that people can just jump in anytime. So anyway, at the end of, sorry, I'm tangent there, but at the end of every arc, they're going to be short. I want to have a remembrance of Elvis, in which Elvis describes who it is that Hulk just faced. So
that's amazing.
We might get a little bit of lore during the story, but half the time they're not even going to know who this person is. Like there are a couple coming up where,
like Swamp Witch, right? That's who's hinted at next.
The Swamp Witch. Yeah, there's going to be like kind of a half-assed origin. We're not really going to know who the Swamp Witch is until they'll remember us at the end of the issue, and then we will know.
That's about like you had me in and we'll move on to this because I want to spend a lot of time talking about this part. Specifically the remembrance of Brother Deep. I know you said the Brother Deep part is true, but I spent literally in a video probably 15 minutes just breaking down this page alone. The aspects involving the One Above All, in which Mother of Horrors was already a thing, and then boom, here comes the One Above All making his own creation seen as a divine creator. Is that part true? Was she already around?
I don't necessarily break down that she was around when the Earth is created. She is kind of like she is as old as we, but not as old as like the primordial soup.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I was wondering.
She was not created by the One Above All. She was a thing that sprang from herself. Like she came into being without
the One Above All.
Yeah, she was around, which makes her kind of an abomination, right?
Yeah, that would make her. That's first of all, that's going to break a lot of people's minds about the Marvel landscape. There could possibly be some horror figure in the cosmos that even the One Above All didn't conceive of.
Not necessarily older than him, but also not more than
Got you. Yeah. She's not of him, regardless of when she came forth. Wow. So another question related to that was when he saw this affront to who he was, which was Brother Deep. He was created as kind of like this blasphemy towards the One Above All. And it said his only weapon at the time was love. And then that's where rage was born. And that's what he used to burn Brother Deep. I was just curious. The dynamic of love and rage. Will you be touching on that more? And was that a case where like rage is a better weapon than love? Or it's just like situational? Curious what your take on love and rage in the verse right now is, because obviously Hulk's intrinsic to it.
Well, as far as what's the better weapon, I mean, love's not exactly a weapon, is it? I mean, like it's not that he didn't just like pull a weapon out of his tool belt. He was made raw the way that we read about in the Old Testament. Right? He saw it as an affront. And so that is, in theory, this is not completely like proven, but in theory that could even mean on the one below all is like born. And I wanted to show this moment. What is it? You see the drawing on the wall where one of the Gauls' eyes was green. In theory, that's where it'll start. Like that.
Got
that
you.
could be potentially the birth of the game. But we'll see.
That would make sense. Wow, that's a that's a lot to take in, and I kind of want to shift over while we have time to the Superman part.
Okay.
Superman is often compared to Hulk, and that's because obviously both are two of the strongest to ever exist in their verses. And I was curious, as someone who's one of the rare few in the world to actually write both, how would you compare those two? Like, if they did have to ever go toe-to-toe one day, like, say an incursion happened, do you see them as comparable? Do you see one as superior? Or do you not really think about it?
Well, they're not comparable at all in what they represent or what they are as characters. I mean, they're not opposite exactly, but kind of. Like, because Hulk is not a villain, but Superman represents. Okay, writing Superman kind of carries this philosophical weight of like, because you're telling the story that you're making a statement about what humanity is capable of, what mankind's potential is as far as virtue. And, is it possible for us to have absolute power and wield it with absolute humility and compassion? He represents an absolute aspirational version of what mankind can be. The only reason that the powers exist are to illustrate how incorruptible he is. That's kind of my golden rule. Whenever I don't ever have him just do shit because it looks cool.
No, and I appreciate that.
It needs to somehow illustrate how untouchable his ethics are, how unshakably moral he is. So
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense because we see him interact, especially in your runs, with things like source level material, and he doesn't seem to become corrupted. And I'm a huge fan. I don't know if you ever read it, but I read all the Ostrander's run in '92 of Spectre, one of my favorite Spectre runs, and even Spectre at one point is corrupted by the source. That's how potent it is. Yet Superman and what he stands for and like his goals, he seems to be able to be around stuff like that and not be corrupted. And it sounds like that's kind of the intention, like you said, to highlight what he stands for.
Yeah, that's the whole point of him. He needs to be the one who can wield any level of power and not be corrupted. That is his whole thing. I think that's what the character means. As in his earliest stories, there are things that the character does. Arguably, I probably wouldn't have him do these days. It kind of shows him in having some petty moments where he like punishes bullies, but not just brings justice, but kind of rubs her face in it sometimes, in ways that are kind of unworthy, in my opinion. Things that you wouldn't really do. Like even in the films, I mean. The Christopher Reeve movies are not perfect, but his portrayal of Superman is perfect. But occasionally the character will do a thing that doesn't quite fit. And there's a thing at the end of part 2 in which he goes back to Bar to punish the trucker. Like he kind of just the guy that he's a real.
Oh yeah, he put the thing up. He put it in the hour or whatever. Just completely ruined his truck.
Well, that's the Man of Steel thing. In the Superman movie, in Superman 2, like the one where Zod and those guys show up.
Mm-hmm.
There's an altercation between Lois and Clark. When he's mortal, he has an altercation with the trucker. The trucker's a bully and a huge asshole, and punches him out, and is super rude to Lois. And at the end of the movie, when he's got his powers back, he goes back and smacks him around. And not a very Superman moment. Like, it's not about the powers. Like, showing him getting even with someone is not what Clark did. So I try to be really mindful of that stuff. Like, you're making a statement about what the right thing is, not what the right looks like, as we say here. So, it's just this great responsibility. You know, it's all about the power is only there to illustrate how incorruptible it is. Hulk is a very different kind of power fantasy. It's not about how good you can be, about how, how pure and unshakable and compassionate, and, powerful through compassion you can be. It's about, how do I handle this thing inside of myself that I'm afraid of? Or how do I, or the power fantasy of, what if this frustration and rage that I feel became power, became strength. It's just it's almost like the opposite, So yeah, it's not really the same thing at all. And it's not the same kind of responsibility, really. It's almost like reveling in the power of it. So yeah, the beauty of the whole concept, the genius of it, is the simplicity of it. But that you can also pick it apart and tell a much more meaningful story from it. It's such a simple concept that anyone can just glance at a movie poster and get it. Anyone can just totally understand what Hulk is, what he represents. Like,
yeah.
When the guy gets angry, when the skinny nerd gets angry, he blows up in this big rage monster and kicks the shit out of everything. I get it. That's cool. But if you look deeper, you can make that a metaphor for fucking anything. I mean, you can just tell so many kinds of stories. You can make it a story about... People have told stories about dealing with their own rage, or about dealing with their own child abuse, with substance abuse, with just a sheer unadulterated power fantasy. Sometimes they have funny overtones. They kind of play up the visual ludicrousness of it. There's so many things you can do with it. For my take, I wanted to go back to the roots in the way that the biggest challenge of taking over this book is just how perfect Immortal Hulk was. That was just a really great run that also went back to the roots of the character, like the fact that it was originally supposed to be a monster book, not really a hero book.
That was the beauty of it, for sure. I love that run too. You will not get anything bad about that out of me. Like that, you guys, and that's why I love this run, because it's picking up on and you directly talk about this as a writer, I believe at the end of issue 1, where you said, all respect to everyone who's written Hulk and what they believe he means, but the scariest part about Hulk is he's a monster. Like, simply put, even if you want to say he's a righteous monster, like, we understand why he's a monster, doesn't matter. He's always going to be that monster. He's always going to exist as that monster. Which you said it's the opposite. And I'm curious, because I've been fascinated with the story of The One Below All in respect to Toa. If you were to ask me, I personally have a theory that The One Below All was kind of a part of Toa he wasn't too proud of. And that's why they're separate. Is there going to be more to The One Below All in your run? Are you going to talk more about that?
I'm going to be talking about The One Above All and The One Below All, sure. Whether or not they're going to be in it, I'm not sure yet, actually. This is the whole thing with the mother of horrors, and her ties with with Eldest, and also with The One Above All. That stuff is kind of the framing device for the entire series. It's not going to be. We're not going to see that whole thing wrapped up, and while we're still in the single digits. Probably not for a very long time. Like, that's kind of the thing that's driving the whole story forward. There's going to be much like other shorter, more immediately consequential arcs that kind of grow out of that whole setup. But that is the setup, Where the whole thing ends up is going to be in part, like, it's funny because, like, the big umbrella arc, the Mother of Horrors represents the umbrella arc of the whole thing. And that is kind of steering the shorter arcs. But the shorter arcs will also in turn kind of steer the big one. Like we need to kind of see where, for example, there's going to be something that happens at the end of issue 11 that was not in the original pitch. I didn't know how it was going to go. I was expecting this thing to happen, and then when I got there, I was like, "Oh, damn! Actually, what if we did this instead?" And it's just a way cooler, just a cooler wrap up to the second arc, and it spins us into the third in a really fun, interesting way, really visually interesting way. So we changed, and that is in turn changing fourth arc even more severely. So the big arc informs where the little ones go, but then when the details get fleshed out in the little ones, those kind of steer the big one even more firmly. So I'm not sure when all that's going to get dealt with, but the origin of the Mother of Horrors is intrinsically linked to the one above all and below all.
Yeah, that's obvious too.
You're going to see the origin of Mother of Horrors in Eldest as well. You're going to see how Eldest knows about Hulk at all, like where she comes from, and how they know each other, and what happened the first time around.
Yeah, because she talks about that. She says, because I remember, I think it's Ross that says, Banner won't let you have him because Banner fears him. And Aldous is basically like, yeah, and he should, but we also took care of him at one point. Which, alludes to a prior fractured son.
Yeah.
And where's that name come from? What made you want to go? I love the nickname Fractured Son because a lot of Hulk versions of Hulk have their own nicknames. World Breaker Hulk, World War Hulk. Right. Fractured Son. What's the big inspiration?
I can't remember how I came to that. I wanted to give him a name that sounded old, not even old, just timeless. Something that sounded timeless is not too, modern sounding. That could refer to Banner, but also refer to something much older. So, as I kind of flesh out the story, it just sort of the story very often just kind of tells itself. And that was the thing that kind of just sprang to the story. Sometimes the story just tells itself. Decides what it wants to be.
Now, another aspect, Man-Thing. I'm a big Man-Thing fan. I've read a lot of Man-Thing in the past. And I was curious in that, because it seemed intentional, in that dialogue between Hulk and Ted. Ted references, I've never seen anything as old as this. I've never seen anything as horrible as this. Was that you saying, hey, this is indeed a Ted that's seen some shit in reference to what he's seen throughout his time? What did you have that in mind when you're writing that? Because he's been through a lot.
Eldest represents the oldest thing that the Ted Sallis man has ever seen.
That's so crazy.
I mean, keep in mind, the Mother of Horrors, if you pay attention in the first issue, Eldest is speaking basically to all monsters on Earth.
Yep.
And she...
Of Shadow and Dream.
Yeah, all of them owe their heredity to the Mother of Horrors. They all come from the Mother of Horrors. And her name is Eldest. She is the first monster, on Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I'm so excited to follow this journey with Hulk going through, because you've talked about it plenty in the run. You're going to be straight up introducing new horrors in Marvel, including, outright creating something that didn't come from the one above all. So I'm super excited for it. I can't wait to have you back on. Next time we'll talk a lot more of your DC work. I'm just a huge Hulk guy. So it was really fun talking about your run. I think your run's amazing. I love your work, and I appreciate your time as always. And just one last kind of funny question. If you were a betting man and you had to place the bet, and it's Hulk and Superman in the arena, the age-old question, who you got coming out on top?
No way. That's a trap. There is, there is an answer. But I also know that most of your listeners hopefully will probably have a favorite. And
Yes.
I don't want to piss on either half of that. So
They have to respect the bet, though. You know, it's an opinion at the end of the day.
Yep, I'm not saying.
That's fair.
There's an answer. There's an answer, but it's not one I'm ever going to say out loud. And
all
besides,
right,
they really are opposite. And not in the sense that one is good and one is bad, but in the way that like what power represents. You know, for one, it's one is when you're telling a story about Superman. It's about showing how amazingly powerful he is, balanced against how much he cares for the most insignificant things of people. In my very first Superman story, he talks about Clark Kent writes an op-ed about, just tells like basically a little biography of this old man who died, a homeless guy who died as Clark was holding his hand, that he knew and knew his story. A guy that any one of us would blow right by on the street and kind of ignore, or give him a few bucks and never think about him anymore. And Clark knew where that guy came from and holds him in the highest regard. He writes this big article in the Daily Planet. It was like the New York Times. Holding him up on this pedestal, like showing us who we're all supposed to be. Like, that man was somebody that we're all supposed to aspire to be like. He's the guy that, blows up the big bad guy tank and picks up flies down, catches the cars, and falls off the bridge and sets it down, and opens up the back seat and checks on the kids in the back, and congratulates them for having their seatbelts on. He's that guy. The power is only there to illustrate how what a beautiful soul he is and how incorruptible he is. The other side, the Hulk story, is you're just reveling in that power. Hulk doesn't know anybody anything. Hulk just wants to be left alone. It's all about just reveling in that power. And doesn't even feel the need to use it until somebody pushes him around, and then he lets it all go. And it's just this huge, violent power fantasy, So yeah, I don't want to say which one's better or which one's tougher or any of that. They're just completely opposite kinds of stories, but both super fun. Both of them are just made for comics.
Oh, for sure. That's forever going to be a debate, and I have no problem with you not answering it, because honestly, for us as the readers, that's part of the fun, our interpretation of who would win if they really did clash. I really do appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to the next time we speak again, and I'm looking forward to the next Hulk run for sure, or next issue, and glad to hear you're already working on 11. That means we're going to get plenty. Do you have any idea how long the run's going to be, or is it just, how's that work?
If it continues to be as fun as it is right now, I'm never leaving. I mean,
I wouldn't be mad at that.
It's doing well sales wise. Fans are all really responding well to it. I feel like the time to leave will kind of make itself known. I want to leave when they want me to stay, or they still want me to stay, and not overstay my welcome.
You don't want to wear out the story.
I don't want
all that.
Yeah, I don't want to pull Dexter and just keep sticking it out, try to squeeze a few more bucks out of him until it doesn't work anymore. So yeah, I'm just gonna right now. It's the setup right now. When I was doing the Werewolf saga on Superman, I kept stretching it out a little bit. Because I had to go up there with a huge cast of Superman and the entire authority team. That's a big ass team.
I'm a diehard Midnighter fan. Yeah,
incredible.
Oh yeah, we will definitely be talking about that in the DC episode, because I've read every Midnighter. Right, he's one of the most entertaining characters to me ever.
I love him. Did you read the Batman Superman the Authority issue where he and Batman meet for the first time?
Yes, I did. A lot of people say so. I'm known as the Midnighter guy, so when he was talking about how cool Batman was, a lot of people used that against me. Usually Midnighter doesn't give people credit. He's the dude that went and beat up Naran in his own hell, so.
Right.
But yeah, I love that story. I can't wait to talk DC with you more. I know we did a lot of Hulk listeners, so you'll see more DC next time. But yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man, and we really love your work and appreciate you giving us these fantastic stories.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you have a good one.
You too, man.